Hello class, in this lesson we are going to talk about the try and catch blocks. This is beyond the AP exam, but it's going to allow us to do some cool things, especially when we start talking about working with files. So let's take a look at the try and catch block. So try and catch. This is going to allow us to try things that may cause an error and then continue running our program even when there is an error. So try, run a code that may have an error. A code that may have an error. And this is a particular kind of error. This is an exception. We've used this word before. Exception. And then catch. Catch means do something if there was an error. Something if there was an error. Okay, so exception. This is a word that we've heard before, and let's talk about, back up just really quickly, and talk about something we've seen many times before. So let's create an integer array. We'll call integer array R, and we'll give this a set of values. So we'll go ahead and initialize it with 3, 4, 5. Right, and we know this is index 0, 1, 2, and 3. So there's only 3 objects in here. Now, when I write this, if I wanted to do something like, say, access, let's say I want to do a system.out.println, and I put in on accident, I wrote R of, let's say, 10. This would cause a problem, right? Because I'm trying to access the 10th index of my array, which we know doesn't exist. This index does not exist. This does not exist. Does not exist. Which will cause, you guessed it, the index out of bounds exception. Out of bounds. Exception. Make that a real E. So this is the index out of bounds exception. Now in the past, the only way that we could handle this is by using if statements or using very controlled loops that would make sure that we don't have this index out of bounds exception. But when we're dealing with things like files and user input, we can't always control what they put in. And so we have this thing called the exception and our friend, the try and catch statement for working with this. So if I wrap my system.out.println R, if I wrap this in a try statement, and it's just the keyword try, then a curly brace, then anything inside of those curly braces will execute. And if there's an exception, then we have to have a catch. And a catch must always accompany a try. So anytime you have a try, the very next thing you're going to write is catch. Lowercase c, catch. And then we're going to have what kind of exception we're going to catch. So we open up with a single parentheses, and we write the exception class that we're going to bring in. This is a basic exception. There are many different types of exceptions, but if you just write simple exception and then we give it a variable name E, this will cover most of the exceptions and certainly will be enough for what we do in this class. There are lots of detailed types of exceptions that give you more tools, but for what we're doing, a simple exception with the variable name E will work fine. And then we have another set of curly braces. And inside this other set of curly braces, we're going to put what happens if there's an error. So I might do something like this. I might do a system.error, ERR, println. This is something new we've never seen before either. And then I might say there was an error. There was an error. And then maybe colon. And then here's the fun thing. So this E is an object, and that object has methods, and one of those methods is the get message. So E.getMessage, capital M, message. Open and close parentheses. We need another thing there. So every try must have a catch. Every try must have a catch. And you're going to need to tell it what the exception is. A basic exception is fine. And then putting what the name of that exception, what the name of the object will be, that you can use to get the message. And there's other methods that we don't need to know, but get message is a useful one. And this will allow us to do things like open up files that throw exceptions and do other things that have rules about them with handling exceptions that we need to tackle in order to get beyond just simple programs, simple user inputs. So the try and catch statement. If there is no error within the try, the catch will not run. So let's talk about some key things here. So if no error in try, then catch will not run. Catch won't run. And vice versa. If there's an error in our try, the catch will run. Here's the beautiful thing. This used to break our program, right? Now, with the catch statement, the program will continue. Program will continue either way. Continue either way. Sorry for my terrible handwriting there. So before, when we had something like this, if we had R trying to find index 10, we would have an error that would kill our program. This no longer kills our program. Instead, our catch statement runs. Our catch statement says there was an error and then continues on rolling through the program. So we need to be careful about our catches and making sure that we adjust things that the rest of our program also doesn't break. Another thing to be aware of with our try and catch statement is scope of variables. Remember that scope of variables lives within any of the curly braces where it's declared. So if you want to do complex work inside of your try statement, any variables you declare in the try, anything that you form, all has to be done within the try statement. You can't access it in the catch statement. You can't access it later in your program. So if you want something to be accessible outside of your try statement, you need to declare it above it, use it within the try statement, and then have access to it later. Although it's often good practice to keep everything as self-contained as possible within the try statement. It's also good practice to keep your try statements somewhat limited. So limit the scope of your try statements. So it's very easy and very tempting to, when you have an error by your IDE, to just write everything in one giant try statement and then try to run your program and see what happens. Well, that can work, but the problem is you don't necessarily know where the error is. It's better to tuck things into methods and then put those try statements in methods that then can handle those errors and pass data around. So try to tuck things into methods. This is good coding practice anyways, right? Putting things into methods, putting your try and catch statements into those methods so that they handle the errors there is fine. All right, so this is the basics of try and catch. There's a lot more to it, but this is going to get us started for working with files, which is the next video. I'll have a link to it down below. Of course, there is a replit and a copy of the notes down below in the description. I'll see you in the next one.